All right, time for a new video, and this is going to be a pretty big project. I'm excited about getting it done. I'm not very excited about actually doing it. So if you've seen previous videos, you saw that I got the black tank and parts to install a macerator several months ago. I think it's probably been 3 months now, and it was fairly expensive to get all of this. And we've been having a problem with our black tank leaking. And lately we've also been getting smells when we drive down the road. And so I think there's probably a crack or something or a bad connection on the top of the tank that's been causing the leak for quite a while. We notice when we fill up almost full, that's when we start to see dripping and leaking underneath the coach. So it's probably something on top. And I think maybe it's gotten worse, and that's why we're now getting smells when we drive down the road. There's probably some vacuum that's pulling smells into the coach. So the last couple times we've driven the coach, we've tried to avoid using the bathroom and the black tank, which is really not the point of having, a motorhome with a bathroom. So pretty excited about getting this project done, but it's going to be not a very fun one, and it's going to take some kind of building things to make it work. So these valves could be picked up other places probably. These are Valterra valves, but we got everything from Applied because I wanted to make sure that I had all of the parts that I needed. We've got the black tank. The black tank also came with some fittings here. These are rubber, and I believe that these are going to be fittings for the vent or maybe the drain. We'll see. The black tank itself has the outlet valve or the outlet hole, and then it has one hole on the top, which is kind of positioned where the toilet is. And so I suspect that's going to be where the toilet is. But the shower, the vents, everything else, we have to drill holes in this or cut holes in this to set that up. And so when I get the old black tank out, I will probably use some cardboard to pattern it and decide how to cut the holes in this new one. The way this is set up, and I'll probably need to get some pieces of pipe to connect things, but there will be a valve coming off the back of the black tank, and then it will go to this adapter, which is what the macerator connects to. And so this basically will go there. And then we have another, another valve here. And the instructions that came with it basically said to kind of set these up on opposite sides. Really, this is the one that you would normally open to run the macerator. And then this one would just be as an emergency. If your macerator failed and you still need to be able to dump out the back, then you could open this valve also. We've got the macerator. I'm going to do 2 videos, one doing the black tank and then one doing the macerator, because I think it's going to be a pretty big project overall. And so I figured 2 videos is probably going to be the way to go. I also got a little level sensor for the tank, and I'll show where that goes here on the tank. So there's a hole right here. Well, actually there's not a hole, I'll have to drill that out, but this will go right in that spot. And this is the kind of sensor that we currently have in the coach, and I wanted to use this because I can connect it up to the connections leading up to our kind of status gauges on the wall by the refrigerator, and this will give me the right kind of signal for that. I looked for various options that might be more reliable, although the one we have has been working fine. And I decided that probably just going with the same style that's been in there will be fine. There's lots of other types of level sensors for black tanks, but most of them send a signal basically to kind of a multi-segment LED type of display where it just has an LED for a quarter, half, 3/4, or full. And because we have an analog gauge to show the level, I wanted to be able to send an analog signal to that. So I think these are all the parts that I'm going to need as far as kind of specialized things. I'm probably going to need some plumbing parts and things that I can pick up at the local hardware store. But for now, I think this will get me started. Next step is to jack up the back of the coach. I'll make sure that I put good support cribbing under the frame, because I'll be doing a bunch of work underneath the coach on this project, and I want to make sure it's secure while I'm under there. So I think those are going to be the next steps. Okay, so I jacked up the coach, and we'll look at that in a minute when I'm on the outside doing the tank removal. But the next step, I think, is to work on things inside. And so I wanted to get access to the various drain connections to the black tank. And one of them is back here. So I removed this back wall from the shower module, and I removed the cover from the water tank, the bench back here and everything. I'm not going to give the details of that because I think ours is not stock, but the back wall comes off pretty easy once you get the bench and the kind of bracket or shelf that the water tank is covered by. There are basically just 5 screws, I think, around this back wall. We didn't have to take the cabinets off up top or anything. But we can see coming down here, there's the vent stack. So that goes all the way up to the roof. Right below that is the drain for the sink in the bathroom. And both of these come down. And then down, it's hard to see down behind here, but there's a drain that comes from the shower. And all of them come together into this one pipe that goes into the black tank. And it's interesting, there's kind of a flange screwed to the floor of the coach, so screwed into the plywood, which I think may be kind of a connection to the black tank. So I'm not going to take anything else off right now. I'm going to wait and see if the black tank drops without having to do anything on the top side here. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that that's the case, because that would be awesome if I could just basically, kind of drop the black tank off and then put the new one up and not have to do a bunch of plumbing work up here. So we'll see. On the other side, we have a similar situation. So the sink is up here, and there's the drain for the sink that comes back here. And I don't have very good light, but use your imagination, I guess. There's a pipe that runs down here. There's a clean out for the sink. And then basically there's the same kind of flange that goes through the floor into the black tank for the sink. So we don't have a gray tank. We just have a black tank. So the shower and sink and toilet and everything go into the same spot. So now in here we have the toilet, and I just used my hand to disconnect the plastic water line on the back, and then there were just 2 7/16 nuts holding it down, and then the toilet just lifted right off. So this is not the original toilet. This is a porcelain type of toilet, but you can see actually things look pretty clean there. I think they may have replaced that flange when they replaced the toilet some time ago. So it's pretty easy to see the 8 screws that hold that flange down. I don't know yet exactly how this is going to come apart. I can see into the black tank there. It looks like I'm just seeing the bottom of the black tank, and it looks relatively clean. I'm going to definitely use some big rubber gloves when I'm working on the black tank side of things. There is some, you can see some silicone, it looks like, kind of around that flange, sealing it to the bottom of the shower. I'm not a big fan of silicone. I'd kind of like to find something else. Normally there would be like a wax seal. So I'm going to maybe do a little bit of research to figure out how exactly that should be sealed down to the floor of the shower. But overall, it looks like things coming apart from this side pretty easy. And let's maybe start looking at the bottom side. All right, so I tried to get the flange loose. I got the silicone cleaned up, and I can get a scraper under there, and it's loose, but it appears that it screws in to the top of the black tank, which makes sense because our new black tank has threads on the one hole in it. But couldn't figure out how to turn this thing. I couldn't get any good leverage on it or anything. So went to YouTube and found somebody who did this. So these 2 little bolts are the ones on the side here that the toilet mounts to. I've taken out all of the 8 screws that hold everything down, and then I moved these bolts to a little different position here so that I could put my pry bar between them. and see if I could get a good twist on this to unscrew it. And oh, look at that. It just came loose very easily, it looks like. So now my pry bar is pretty long, so I can't move it very far, but I have a smaller pry bar. And see if I can, yeah, look at that. Just turns very nicely. Need to move some things out of the way here. Now, I'm not wearing gloves for this part because the messy part's on the inside and I'm working on the outside, but this will definitely be a glove job once I get it loose. Now, what I see here is it looks like it is unscrewing at the top. So that's kind of interesting. Just keep unscrewing this and see what happens. I think it's okay if it screws in the top as long as the black tank can drop out the bottom. Yeah, this is unscrewing very nicely. And I think this is probably not original because we have a newer toilet, but all right, that looks promising. Whew, yeah, things are pretty dirty and crummy and nasty down there, but I think that I see just a hole in the floor and then this pipe going down into the top of the black tank. So that is a good sign. I'm definitely going to want to seal up everything around the black tank when I put it in, because this is could be a highway for mice coming into the coach. But I can see black tank and the pipe going into the black tank, so I think I might go outside and work on dropping the black tank now and see if it comes out. All right, so we're underneath the coach, and as always, when I lift the coach up and I'm going underneath to any degree, I always put blocks under the coach, and I also put some jack stands under the bogie center lift point. So I'm blocked up on some cribbing and underneath here with the black tank. So what we've got here, obviously our black tank, it's been leaking, but it looks like there's been some kind of repair done on the back here, and a weird kind of reducer, increaser type of connection going to the valve. So there's obviously been some problems there. I think taking off this kind of bracket across here should open this up so that I can drop things down. I also have these straps that are supporting it more or less. Looks like this one on the passenger side is tighter than the one on the driver's side. Everything is very rusted, so I'm hoping I can put some WD-40 on these nuts and get that to come loose. I am also going to need to disconnect the drain pipe that we have now, and it's interesting, we have just some rubber flange things that are connecting this together. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. We have had one of these flanges come loose and leak, so I had to do some repairs to that a little while ago. But it should make it pretty easy to take things apart because I've got these rubber flanges. But I need to take all of this off and get it out of the way so that I can remove these straps and lower the tank down. I think I'm going to try to use my floor jack to lower the tank down, especially because of this repair on the back. I know there's going to be some stuff in the tank. The tank has definitely not been draining completely. So got some work to do there. Yeah, we'll go at it and see how it goes. All right, so I unscrewed the hose clamp that was holding the rubber adapter between the black tank and the drain valve, and was able to, by removing a couple more mounts for the existing drain pipe, was able to pull it out the back of the black tank. So I now have a floor jack underneath the actual black tank, and unfortunately, because of the repairs and the way the drain is set up on the black tank, there's still some water in there. And so we're letting some of that drain out. We rinsed the tank a couple of times, and so it's mostly clear water, but the inside of the black tank is obviously disgusting. So I want to try to make as little a mess as possible as I disconnect the old pipe here and then start lowering the tank. I think with the adapter kind of disconnected from the back of the tank, I'll be able to lower the tank, and the rubber will kind of flex and bend as it comes out, and so I think that will be okay. I used some PD blaster on the nuts that hold the tank straps, and they're all starting to loosen up, and so that's a good sign. I think I'll be able to loosen those. So once this drains for a while, I will go under there and start loosening the straps and see if the tank comes down. All right, so I have used a bucket to get as much water as possible out of the tank. I talked a little bit about the repairs that happened here, and it looks like that was keeping about 5 gallons of liquid, I'll say, in the tank. And so we've been draining that out. We've got about 5 gallons out so far. And I disconnected the wires to the level sensor. I took off the straps, so the straps now are just hanging down below the tank. I'm using a jack to support the tank. The straps came off pretty easy. I actually didn't do anything with the front bolts, and I used a 9/16 deep socket to get them off the back. Now the bolts that go up into the floor started spinning, so I just put basically a vice grip on there to hold the bolt while I loosened things up, and then it loosened up fine. Now on ours, we have this rubber adapter here. Oops, there it goes. At the back of the tank, and so that was holding it up in this hole here. But I haven't had to take off the bracket along the bottom, which I'm kind of thankful about because these bolts are all rusted. I might actually take the bolts out and replace them with new stainless steel ones once I get the tank out, just to help kind of clean things up a little bit and make it easier if I need to do something with this in the future. But the connections, I can see the connection up here for the vent and the sink drain and the shower drain, and it has just pulled off the bottom. And so it looks like the whole black tank is basically just dropping out now that I've taken the straps off. I have the jack back there to kind of hold it. It's actually bending the tank a little bit and causing it to, not really be very well supported. So I'm gonna let the water drain a little more, pull my bucket out. Actually, the bucket is holding it up a little bit right now. And then I think the tank is just gonna come right out and I will be good to go. All right, so we got the old black tank out, and it actually came out pretty easy. It took a little bit of work to get the supports out of the way, and then it basically just dropped out. The last thing kind of holding it was this pipe, which is what the toilet attaches to on top. It's obvious that we've been having leaks here, so this has been overflowing, and there's basically just a little stub hanging down from the bottom of the coach that was going into this, and when the tank got full, it was obviously overflowing here. There's all kinds of unpleasant things around that fitting. This is where the shower and the bathroom sink and the vent for the shower all kind of go into the tank. You can see our old level sensor there that was still working, but we're gonna put in a new one. And you can also see the drain setup that we had here. It looks like there was some kind of creative repair that was done on the back of the tank here, and they put in a 2-inch connection and then did a 2-inch to 3-inch adapter to go to the 3-inch drain pipe, which not a great way to actually be able to drain the tank. And as we were dropping it, we were getting a lot of water out, even though we had drained it and flushed it with fresh water a couple of times. Obviously, we were keeping probably somewhere from, 6 to 10 gallons still in the tank, even when we drained it, which means our 35-gallon tank was actually more like a 25 or 30-gallon tank. So getting a good drain connection, I think, will be very nice. And then our other connection over here, this is where the kitchen sink attaches in, and same type of situation, just a stub poking in to the top of that. No real connection. There's no way to, this is a type of connection looks like that would kind of like screw on to tighten around the pipe. but it wasn't tight and there was no way to get in there to actually tighten it. And so I think I'm going to go with a little different approach on the new tank. But the old tank is out. It actually came out really easy. We didn't have to, as far as I can tell, actually do anything from the top, where we took the bench out of the back and worked on the taking out the back wall and all of that. When we got in there, we saw that there was just a hard connection to the floor. So I don't really know that we needed to do that, other than just making sure that the vent pipe and everything looks good and there are no leaks. So as far as the old black tank, I do need it for one thing, which is making a template of where the holes are. So I laid this over the top of the old tank, and because the toilet hole is the one that is solidly mounted to the tank and then solidly mounted to the coach, I use that as a reference for my shower and bathroom sink, and then the other sink drain. So I'll use this on top of the new tank, and I will basically use my toilet adapter there to line up where exactly I need to drill the holes. So I think this cardboard template will be a good solution for making sure I get my holes in the right spots. I think that the new tank has little kind of marks here where the holes are going to be, but I want to make sure I get these marks just right. So I'll make sure that that's actually right in the middle of where I'm going to do my new hole. So as long as we're looking at things here, the bathroom, well, I guess the toilet piece, I got a couple of 3-inch threaded adapters, and when I put these together with a short piece of pipe in the middle, it comes up to almost exactly the height that I need for the toilet. So I think this is going to be a solution here. I just got these at my local hardware store. I think that will work. If it seems like this width here is too big, then I might end up finding a piece of threaded 3-inch pipe like I have on the other tank, or maybe reuse the one from the other tank. It seems like it's in fine shape. I just don't really want to have to touch or do anything with the old tank if I can avoid it. Talk about a couple other things here. So I think when I got this tank, the outlet was not quite round. And so trying to figure out how to attach this valve to it, it wasn't even coming close to fitting in there. And so I just used my heat gun to kind of warm up the edge of the tank here a little bit, so that I could put this valve in. I haven't actually glued it yet. I'm going to kind of just make sure everything fits together before I start gluing things up. But I was able to make this outlet on the new tank round and fit the valve into it. So that's kind of my first stage before I go to where my macerator will connect and things. I need to think about how the brace in the back needs to kind of fit behind this. And so there'll be some dry fitting to make sure things work there. All right, so I gathered up some of the parts and pieces here for the rest of this. And I got pretty much everything just at my local hardware store. I'll put links for some of the things I got other places, but some of the holes that we'll need to drill. So I have a 1.5-inch hole saw here that I'll use to drill a hole for our new level sensor. So I'm not going to use the level sensors that are built into this. I'm going to use one that is more of the OEM style. And so this will give me a good signal to my analog level sensor or level gauge in the coach. And so I like this rather than using kind of the more modern style that'll give me kind of like LED type of signal. So we'll drill a hole and install that. I also have a 2 5/8 hole saw for this hole here. And I looked at a few different ways. There's a couple of ways to set up your pipes. The old tank had an insert here in each of these places that was threaded, and then pipes would thread into that, and they were using kind of a slip joint type of connector. I did some research, and I think that this rubber connector is going to work okay. So I'm going to drill a hole. We'll put that in the pipe. So this is a 2-inch pipe. Will fit right into this and basically slide into the tank. And I'll cut the length of this to be just what I need to go up to the little stub that's coming from the bottom of the coach, and use a coupler to attach that. And so I'm actually going to glue the coupler and the additional length of pipe to the bottom of the coach, so all of that will be solid. And then when I push the tank up, it will slide into this. And so this will be kind of a slip fitting. I am a little concerned that the rubber might wear out over time and need to be replaced, but I did some research and there's lots of black tank install videos, and pretty much everybody's using this type of connector. And the tank wasn't really hard to take out. And so, if for some point, at some point 10 years from now, I start having problems, I may just have to replace it, and lesson learned. But I think this will be a good solution. This other one, I have a 2 1/4 inch hole saw. This is the one on the other side, and I'll do the same thing. So hole saw to put in this rubber fitting. I'll put a piece of 1 1/2 inch pipe in there with a coupler to the little piece that's coming out the bottom of the coach. So that will be all of my connections. So basically the kind of solid pieces of pipe will be coming down from the top of the coach. This toilet connection will be solidly connected to the tank, and I should be able to just push this straight up into the position. Time for another update on the black tank and how things are going. It's been a little bit of a slow project, but I think we're making some good progress. Thought I would give some updates. So we have drilled all of our holes, and I think I mentioned some of the hole sizes before. They were wrong. So here are the ones I ended up using. For the level sensor back here, I've got that installed. It was a 1 1/2 inch hole, so I think I was right on that one. But the 2 holes in the tank ended up making a hole just the exact same size as the fitting. Didn't allow the fitting to really fit in right. And so I ended up having to go a little bit bigger. We actually applied GMC and asked them about it, and they said, yeah, just make the hole a little bit bigger and it'll work fine. So for the bigger hole up here, which is the shower, bathroom, sink, and vent, we ended up using a 2 3/4 inch hole saw to drill that, which is a little bit bigger than the overall size of the grommet. And then the other side, which is the sink, kitchen sink, it is a 2 1/2 inch hole. And so drilled both of those, got the grommets installed. I ended up using a little bit of silicone grease to basically seal glide to get that kind of in there and seal it up a little bit. And then we have these pieces, so my coupler and a piece of pipe. So the coupler will be glued to the bottom of the drain and vent, and then this will fit in there and go in. I've done that for both of them, and basically kind of checked the spacing with the other tank, and did a little bit of dry fit where I put this underneath the coach and lifted it up, and it looks like it's going to fit. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these onto the pipe coming off the coach so that I can see this hanging down to get it lined up with my grommets. There's a little bit of space around the toilet pipe here, so I have a little bit of flexibility to move that a little bit if I need to. But overall, it looks like it's lining up okay. I will say, working underneath the coach on the ground with basically 1.5 feet of space is no fun. I don't really have a good way to lift the coach up anymore. I think if I was going to do this all over again, I would either pay somebody to do it, or I would get some better kind of lift to get the coach up off the ground some more, maybe ramps or something like that. Because right now I'm using a creeper to roll the tank around to get it in place. I've got a floor jack with a board to help jack it up. I've got a motorcycle stand, and they don't really fit underneath there very well. I've been laying on the ground a bit to try to dry fit things. So not a real fun job, but I think we're getting pretty close. I did also make a little kind of screen net to put around this, because there was a pretty big kind of gap around this pipe going into the coach, and then there's a space underneath, well, basically between the floor and the bottom of the shower floor, where I think there was some evidence of mice, things getting in there. So I'm going to put this screen in to help fill that gap. I looked around for other holes and things. I don't see too much, but I'm going to use some of this mouse shield expanding foam anywhere I see any gaps or places that I think mice might be getting into the coach while I've got the black tank out. And I think I'll have plenty of this to go around other places and try to seal up anything that could be a highway for mice. We haven't had huge problems with mice, but we've been kind of regularly getting, it seems like, 1 or 2 in there that chew on things a little bit before they get caught in a trap. So I want to try to cut down their access as much as possible. So I think next steps, mount this and the other one here on my pipes. I'll take it over. I'm going to dry fit it a little bit more before I actually try to install things. But getting closer little bit by little bit. Okay, well, I ran into a little problem, and I'm going to show you how to not make the same mistake I made. What I have is I've used a jack and some jack stands to get the tank up here pretty much in place where it should be. It needs to go up a little bit more. But what I'm finding is the outlet hole does not line up with this hole in the frame that it needs to go through. And I'll take this down to do some work on it, but I'll show what I did wrong. But yeah, definitely going to have to do some special modifications or something to work around this. I don't think I can really reposition the tank much from where it is. So best thing is to just not make the same mistake I made. Okay, so we're back in the garage, and I just showed how the black tank is not lining up under the coach, and I now understand what I did wrong, and so I thought I would share that information to hopefully help you avoid the mistake that I made. So I've got the new tank here. I've got my template that I thought was a genius idea to make sure that it would fit right. And I measured everything off of this pipe on the old tank, because I thought as long as I had this as a fixed location and then made my 2 other holes in the right spots in relation to where the toilet goes, that everything would be fine, because this was the only fixed point in the tank. Well, turns out, and it's obvious, I don't know why I didn't notice this, there is a second fixed point in the tank, the outlet, and what I should have done is on the old tank, measured off this like I did, but also mark exactly where this outlet is, so that then when I drilled these other holes, my 2 fixed points would line up exactly with the old tank. So I think the cardboard template was a good idea. I just didn't think it through all the way. And so now I'm gonna need to do a little special modification to just figure out how to make it work. But if I ever do this again, I'll know how to do it right, I think. All right, finally got the tank in. I'm not putting on the outlet valve and things yet, because I'm going to do a macerator. That's going to be a different video, probably in the spring at this point, so stay tuned for that in the future. But the tank is in. I've got the support bars in. I've got all the pipes connected. Everything is set up. So basically ready to just button things up on the bottom here. We'll go inside and I'll work on getting the toilet and things done. But as far as getting the tank to fit and get attached back on the bottom of the coach, things are looking good. So finally making some real progress on this project, and I think we'll get it pretty much all done here very soon. This has been the longest, most frustrating project I've done, but as the last bit showed, I think I've got the black tank installed where it needs to be, and I think that's going to work. But I've got some inside work to do, getting the toilet installed. So the piece that the toilet attaches to is this flange right here, and I had to make a bit of an adapter to go into the top of the black tank. There's a vent behind the wall here, there's a vent across the hall, and this goes down into the tank and then screws into the floor, and the toilet attaches to this. So need to work on that. But what I did in the fall was spray some expanding foam in the opening between the top of the black tank and the opening in the floor of the coach. And that has expanded a little bit, so I need to trim that out and get that cleaned up so that my flange will go in. And across the hallway here, we've got the vent for the sink, which is on the other side, kind of by our air compressor. And we put expanding foam around that also. The way that attached to the floor, went through the floor into the black tank, was not real secure. And so I used the expanding foam to both kind of seal it up, make sure that mice can't get in there, but also maybe just give it a little bit of support to keep it from wiggling around too much. So yeah, I think you need to figure out how to trim back the foam a little bit and work on getting the toilet flange installed. Okay, you good? We finally made it to the end of the black tank project, and it turns out the very last step of actually putting the flange back on the top of the tank, bolting it down to the shower floor, and installing the toilet was one of the easiest parts of the whole project. So that went pretty quick. The overall project was pretty challenging, and hopefully you'll learn from some of the mistakes that I made along the way. I have not done a video yet on the macerator and the piping and things that will come out of the black tank, so stay tuned for another video where I go through all of that. So this is really just focused on the black tank itself. So yeah, in a little while here, when I have both those things done, you'll probably want to watch them both together. But this was one of the very challenging projects, and something I hope I never have to do again. So if you're doing this, hopefully you only have to do it once, and then you get to enjoy not having to worry about it for hopefully another 30 years or so.